Hi, Brian Fraser again, talking about the Jesus, Jazz, and Worship project here at Brentwood Presbyterian Church. At the end of the summer of 2018, August the 25th, actually, we had a small consultation between the students, some of whose interviews I'm sure you've seen already, hopefully you've seen already, Noah Franz Nolin, Giselle Rocha, Sophia Avellino, and Josh Santos. There were 4 jazz students who worked with us over the summer doing interviews with jazz musicians, ministers, and people who attend jazz worship services. So that's what we're trying to do is dig more deeply into the dynamics of jazz worship services. And they came together with a group who are the coordinating committee for the project here at Brentwood. Dan Reynolds, Adele Wilding, Rick Reynolds, Darlene Ketchum, Ron Kinders were the people who were here for that particular meeting. And there's some interviews with them on our channels as well. But they came up with 20 questions that they thought we should continue to explore over the next 8 months as the project continues. And so I just wanted to highlight some of the themes that were emerging there and invite you to answer our questionnaire. If you're a musician that have participated in Jazz Evensong or jazz worship services, Evensongs, Vespers, they're often called. You may be a minister who's doing those services. You may be a member of the congregation or the audience who's attended those services. And I'll say a little bit about that in just a minute. The questions that we want to pursue have to do with, and I'm just going to take these at random, some of them have to do with how are we developing community through those worship services. The church is a community. V.J. Iyer, who teaches, a wonderful jazz pianist who is beginning a jazz program at Harvard, he talks about jazz not so much as a style of music, but as a community of musicians and audiences. So there's great diversity within that community, but they're all there around some basic forms and structures that shape the way in which they improvise with the music that they're playing. Lots of different influences come into that, but there's a common structure and form that allow them to communicate with each other and be in conversation with that. And it's interesting to explore how that might be a good analogy for the church. What's the core form or structure? Think of the great commandment: love God with your whole being, love your neighbor, love yourself, an important part of that. Think of the passage in Micah: do justice, love kindness, walk humbly with God. Those could be seen as kind of basic forms or structures around which Christianity improvises. So lots of interesting ideas there to explore. The other thing that came out of the interviews, especially with the musicians, was how they see both their music and their spirituality as journeys, as thought-provoking, or maybe even we could call it a soul-provoking journey. And the way I use soul is that soul is the integration of instinct and emotion and intellect, all of which are working together in our beings. They often aren't in sync. Daniel Siegel, a neuroscientist and psychiatrist who teaches down in Los Angeles, talks about the alignment of those three, instinct, emotion, and intellect. When they're aligned and working the way they're designed to work together, that's wisdom. So I love that way of talking about soul. So what's the soul-provoking journey that's taking place in jazz, and how can conversation or dialogue with the Christian community enrich both of those communities and find out where the overlaps are and what sources of flourishing. Our tagline here at Brentwood is nourishing souls to flourish in the grace of Jesus Christ. So entering into dialogue with the jazz community is one of the ways in which we can find new ways of doing that. And especially looking at the dynamics of the overlap, because some of the musicians do identify with the Christian community. The other piece that forms a theme through these 20 questions that we want to continue to explore is what Christopher G. Small talks about. He's got a book called Musicking, And so what he's trying to do there is say that music itself, all of music, is an event that involves a whole community of people. So there's the composers and the players and the audiences and the conversations that they're having and all of the people that set up these things. You know, people like Ken Burke, who's taping these interviews and is doing just a wonderful job around here at Brentwood, helping us out with all of this stuff. And we really appreciate Ken's work with us. But that's all part of the musicking that nourishes us to flourish in the grace of Jesus Christ from our point of view. So how do we dig more deeply into the way in which spirituality is informing our music and our music is informing our spirituality? And how does Christianity become part of that conversation? We haven't got any easy answers to that. We're continuing to explore and experiment with things, and that's part of the reason for this project, is to dig more deeply into that dynamic. So those are some of the questions that we want to continue to explore. And we'd love to have you involved in this project. So this is a brochure that we put together with a series of questions for congregations, for ministers, for musicians, wherever you may fit in that category. There's an email at the bottom of the screen where you can get a hold of me, and I would be more than happy to send you an electronic copy of this set of questions. All you have to do is put it into a Word doc, put your answers into a Word document, send it off to me. If you've got other friends that you think would be interested in contributing to this project, please pass it on to them, and we'll just see what we come up with. At this stage, over the summer, our students managed to interview about 65, 70 people. We've got about 120 pages of summaries of those interviews, so it's a rich set of data for us to play with, and hopefully others will pick up the conversation. So thank you for your interest, and get in touch with us, let us know, and if you're willing to contribute, email me and I'll send you the questions. Thanks very much.